Today, November 4th, is the feast of the patron of the parish, St. Charles Borromeo. We have a picture. Besides having an absolutely amazing nose, he was a man of remarkable intellect, lived in the 16th century. He was a man of great commitment, of follow-through, of fidelity, of deep love. And he was, from the gospel today, he was on fire for both love of God with all his mind, heart, and strength, and the neighbor as himself. He came from an extraordinarily wealthy family, perhaps the richest in Italy at the time. He was a cardinal and a secretary to his uncle, who was Pope. He was a cardinal before he was ordained. In those days, you didn't need to be a priest to be a cardinal. And when his older brother died, he became head of the family, and they wanted him to take up all the responsibilities of all the lands, etc. But at that time, he knew that he didn't want to. He knew that he had fallen in love. He wanted to be a priest. He wanted to serve. And so he turned that down and was ordained a priest and then a bishop. He was absolutely instrumental in the history of the church of bringing a real reform. He was the secretary that coordinated the Council of Trent, which was the council that reformed the church. And without him, they argue, it wouldn't have happened, because he was completely committed in getting people together. And then he began to implement those reforms. You know, before the Council of Trent, there was nothing like religious education or CCD. If you weren't in a monastery or a convent or whatever, you just picked up faith the way you picked it up. One of the reforms of that was to start what has been called CCD, but now we call it religious ed. And before that, before the council, there were no seminaries. Priests were studying, maybe they understudied with a priest, and said maybe they could read more or less. You know, they were just like an apprentice. Some went to university, but not that many. So one of the big reforms one of the weaknesses of the Catholic Church was its clergy, thank God. So that was one of the reforms, and he was instrumental in doing it. And when he returned to Milan as Archbishop, Milan's in northern Italy, not just did he lead reform, but when the plague broke out, you can imagine all of the governor and everyone took off for the hills. He was left to do the relief effort, using all of his personal family resources and all the resources of the church to minister to those with the plague and those who were hungry. If he were living today, I'm sure he'd be on the Jersey coast or on Staten Island. He was a first responder, and he was a man of great love. So these two commandments, he caught fire. He could have lived a different life, but he knew God. And once he knew God, he knew there was nothing else for him but to live that way. Now today I'm talking at all the masses on stewardship. Maybe you saw in the pew this letter. On one side is the parish report from last year's budget, and the other is just a letter. On the bottom, you can make a commitment. Now, I know that a lot of Catholics are allergic to commitment, but I want you to listen to me and hear me out. We cannot always live on our savings, you know. There comes a time when we all have to grow up as a community and have to step forward. And I'm asking you to step forward. There are many people who are very generous, and I thank you. And there are many people who do next to nothing. And I want to ask you to step forward, to make a commitment. Those who are not living on the edge. Now, I understand that there may be people, maybe many people here whose faith is hanging by a thread. It is hanging by a thread because you don't know God. You know, maybe you haven't really, you say, you know, you just, maybe you drifted in here because, I don't know, whatever. But I want to tell you that we would like to, there's nothing wrong with God's transmitter. But there may be something wrong with your receiver. Because it is the absolute truth that God loves us. And I would like you to know that. And I'd like you to be able to step forward. I'd like you to be able to engage. On the letter, I say that one of the things we do are faith programs. I don't know if you've noticed, if you've been around for a while this year, we've started all kinds of outreach. Whether it be Crucio, or Discovering Christ, or Following Christ, or Sharing Christ, all these programs. The Bible Timeline, the Bible study on Psalms, landings, all of these are meant to help those who are hanging by a thread find out that God indeed is real and catch fire the way Charles Borromeo did, the way I have, thank God, you know, and the way you can. So that's one of the things that we're about. The first thing it says, we could help a single mom who just lost her job pay the rent. This weekend, once a month, 10% of the weekend collection goes to, I don't know if you heard it at the beginning, Project Lazarus. Project Lazarus goes completely to the poor. It does help people stay in their housing. It does help people pay their electricity. It does buy medicine for people who couldn't afford it. It does put food on people's table, you know. And then the third point I say, you know, we're not just concerned about our own faith and about the poor. We're trying to build a different community in Arlington, you know. On talking about fostering affordable housing, this parish is working toward it. I had a meeting this week with a bunch of people who care a lot about it in Arlington County, you know, to preserve and promote housing for people who can't afford the high rents that so many of you pay. You know? And then, of course, the last point is that there comes a time when everything wears out. You know, the ceiling hasn't been paid, the church hasn't been paid in 25 years, 23 years. The rug was put in 23 years ago. You might say to yourself, I don't really care about the ceiling and the rug. How about the air conditioning? That was put in 23 years ago. And it is way toward the end of its life. Now, your grandmother or grandfather are not going to write the check for when we need to do the air conditioning. And unfortunately, you can't go to the Jersey Shore this summer. So, you know. So I'm asking you to take seriously and make it. Now, do you have to fill this out? It's a free country, right? I'd love for you to do it. But I'd even like you more, because that'll help us know what kind of commitment make you to step up. But, you know, say you're allergic to writing things down or something. More important is to make the commitment and then live by it. And you can do that. You can do that by doing it online. Make it automatic. Go to our website and begin your donations today and make them automatic out of your checking or whatever. But the one thing for sure I want to encourage you is to step forward. You know, if you're feeling like you have no commitment, the way to have commitment is to take a step. It's not, no one's going to push you. I'm not going to push you. I want you to begin to take steps, step forward, whether it's next time we have Following Christ, come. Or Discovering Christ after Christmas, or next time we have a Bible study. Make a commitment. You know? It is definitely true. You know, if something doesn't touch your wallet, it doesn't touch your heart. I don't care what you say. You know? If you're not willing to commit, it's all hot air. Might as well be on TV with a political ads. You know? So I'm encouraging you, in particular, those who haven't made a commitment. I want you to find God. Now, I know it's heresy to say, but I care less about you becoming a Catholic than I care about you finding God in your life, in Jesus Christ. I want you to see, I want you to feel what I know to be true, the power of Christ's work in your life, what Charles Borromeo knew, what so many of the people know, the power to transform your life. Step forward. Let it happen. I offer this invitation not just to make a financial commitment, but to make a commitment of your own life, your own desire. You know, Jesus prayed this prayer, the prayer that you heard in the gospel, the first one, like every religious Jew, twice a day. Jews today, Shema Yisrael, as the prayer is called. They pray it twice a day, religious Jews. Hear, and Jesus believed it with all his being. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus lived it to his last breath, and you can too. Make a commitment. More importantly, step forward and fulfill your commitment. Live it and find the power of Christ, of God in your life.